Os Estados Unidos é um país de rebeldes que uma vez se apaixonou pelo romance da liberdade e temeu suas consequências. Quando as emoções dos homens e mulheres se acendem, a ordem encontra seu caminho para o caos.
Legal does not mean desirable.
Their constitutional right of privacy.
Can't flaunt and mock God.
No one has the right to force me.
Who should make the decision, the government or a woman?
Without prayer, we wouldn't have our Constitution.
Quem tem o direito de dizer quais promessas são as sagradas? A moral não segue a letra da lei. A letra escarlate. Grandes livros.
Against the will of God.
You deserve.
You can give your child a father.
Jezebel.
The father of your child has to free.
Hester Prynne era uma ameaça a tudo que os puritanos da Nova Inglaterra respeitavam. Sua lei, sua fé e sua moral. Ela era uma mulher condenada.
The situation at the beginning of the Scarlet Letter is the exposure and shaming of a woman who has committed what to the Puritan society is considered a crime. She's a married woman who has been sent out to the colony without her husband, and in the 2-year interval between her arrival and the day that the story opens, she's conceived a child, obviously not her husband's child.
Hester is a remarkable character and an important character in a number of ways. She's important, I think, because she's the first American heroine. She's part of a tradition of heroines that you find in English literature with George Eliot, for instance, which is the sensuous and sensually alert woman who at the same time has a modesty and a sense of control and a sense of herself as a person.
Hester Prynne foi condenada a carregar a letra A na roupa pelo seu pecado de adultério. Roger Chillingworth, seu marido, há muito desaparecido, chegou em Boston a tempo de testemunhar a humilhação da sua mulher. O amante de Hester, o jovem pastor Arthur Dimmesdale, permanece calado sobre o seu romance, e os 3 personagens começam uma dança atormentadora de culpa, hipocrisia e vingança que acaba em tragédia. O cenário é Boston, no século XVII, uma colônia no meio do deserto. A região pouco civilizada dos puritanos foi o palco para a tentação de Hester Prynne. Os puritanos vieram para a América na tentativa de se livrarem da Igreja da Inglaterra. Eles eram protestantes devotos, imbuídos na purificação da sua fé e determinados a fundar colônias no Novo Mundo que servissem como modelos para a nação.
We mustn't think that they came to New England to establish religious freedom. They came to New England to establish a godly society according to their own lights. Their intention was to have the freedom to establish this godly society.
So they initiate a history of law versus conscientious objection, if I can put it that way. And that problem is still very, very much with us. I mean, we continue to have at every point in our society people who feel that they must conscientiously break the law, and those who feel that if the law is broken, society will go to pieces. That problem, I think, will never go away.
O criador de Hester foi Nathaniel Hawthorne, homem que olhava os puritanos sob o ponto de vista vitoriano.
Hawthorne was writing in the 1840s at a time when what we now think of as women's liberation, whatever that means, but when the idea of the emancipation of women was very much around. And Hawthorne was sensitive to that. But on the other hand, he was very much a man of his period, and he still had to deal with a fundamental problem, which was he did not know quite what to do with his feelings about women.
Para a maior força do enredo, Hawthorne inventou uma história sobre a origem da letra escarlate. Ele dizia que seu livro baseava-se numa história real, que descobrira um dia num canto empoeirado da alfândega de Salem. Junto com o manuscrito, encontrara ainda um velho pedaço de tecido, bordado com a letra A.
My eyes fastened themselves upon the old scarlet letter and would not be turned aside. Certainly there was some deep meaning in it, most worthy of interpretation.
Mas tal nunca aconteceu. Hawthorne escrevia uma história fictícia que penetrou na consciência dos americanos como um estudo sobre a eterna luta entre a sociedade e o indivíduo, entre a lealdade e o amor.
It's a book about passion, deception, hypocrisy, trust. A book about the power of the society over the individual and the individual's obligation to society. All of those things, I think, will make it resonate down the corridors of time despite the changes in fashion, the changes in language, the changes in morality.
A atriz Lillian Gish interpretou Hester Prynne em 1926, na primeira adaptação da Letra Escarlate para o cinema. A estrela do cinema mudo teve que garantir à preocupada censura de Hollywood que o filme seria de bom gosto antes que eles aprovassem o projeto. 76 anos após, a história do pecado e do sofrimento ainda mexe com as pessoas. Em 1995, o diretor Roland Joffe fez um outro filme baseado no clássico.
All the issues in Scarlet Letter are totally alive. You know, women are still struggling, which in a world that, in all honesty, is not shaped in their best interests. We're caught in a conflict, let's face it, and I don't know whether there's an easy answer to this. On the one hand, we need order and we need balance to create a society because we want to create a world that's stable enough for people to be able to survive in, and because people want to live as much as they can a peaceful life. That's one side of it. The other side of it is we're all autonomous human beings. We have our own passionate natures, our own desires, our own need to create the world in our own mold.
Já no século atual, A Letra Escarlate era um dos livros mais atacados pela crítica norte-americana, e o nome Hester Prynne tornou-se sinônimo de vergonha.
The most important character in the book is Hester Prynne. She is a strong and independent woman. The situation that begins the story is her conflict, you might say, between the image she presents of what she's done and the image that the Puritans have of what she has done. That is, from their perspective, she has committed a horrible crime, and from her perspective, it's not totally clear yet, but there seems to be some resistance on her part to accepting that designation.
Hester é forçada a permanecer 3 horas no palanque, para que as pessoas do vilarejo pudessem testemunhar a sua desgraça.
She is created as a figure for other people to learn lessons from. They were trying to make her sin public, in the sense that the letter itself was a way for the community to never forget that sin.
As comunidades puritanas eram compostas de famílias patriarcais, que não toleravam a desobediência e aqueles que transgrediam as regras. A lei da vila não distinguia a igreja do Estado. A Bíblia era a fonte para as doutrinas tanto espiritual como civil. A Letra Escarlate foi o primeiro sucesso de Nathaniel Hawthorne como escritor. Ele nasceu em Salem, Massachusetts, em 1804, onde cresceu com suas duas irmãs e mãe viúva. Depois da universidade, Hawthorne passou quase 12 anos isolado, aprimorando a sua arte de escrever.
Hawthorne was a complicated individual. He was very reserved, especially in adult life. But there's no question that there was a passionate heart and soul that lurked underneath.
Quando estava com 38 anos, casou-se com Sophia Peabody. Eles mudaram-se para Concord, ainda em Massachusetts, onde Hawthorne aderiu ao movimento transcendentalista dos escritores Ralph Waldo Emerson e Henry David Thoreau. Quando precisou de dinheiro, Hawthorne voltou a Salem, onde trabalhou como inspetor da alfândega. Depois que perdeu o emprego por razões políticas, Hawthorne escreveu A Letra Escarlate em 1850. A obra foi aplaudida desde o início como um clássico da literatura, mas só vendeu 8.000 exemplares durante o tempo da vida do autor.
The question why Hawthorne would have written about the Puritans in the 19th century is one that's quite compelling, because many people think he was a Puritan. Because why would you write about these awful people if you weren't one? And the answer to that is that in the 19th century, as indeed in the 20th century, these people have a special status in this nation. I mean, they are the guys who came over on the Mayflower and kind of took over our history.
Herman Melville thought that Hawthorne had a deep, dark secret that, if it were disclosed, would explain the meaning of all his work. That's one of several testimonies that we have from Hawthorne's life of people that knew him, who thought that there was a secret side that never was disclosed.
Os ancestrais de Hawthorne também o vinculavam a um passado puritano. Seu bisavô, John Hawthorne, fora juiz nos julgamentos de bruxaria em Salem no ano de 1692.
For someone like Hawthorne, the issue of persecution and prosecution of women for witchcraft, I think, is a compelling theme, a fascinating theme. Hawthorne is reworking these themes that his ancestors worked. How do we think about women? You know, what do we allow women in our society? You know, do we really allow them the kind of independence of thought we as men claim for ourselves? I don't think Hawthorne was willing to go that far. But he's certainly struggling through a lot of the complications of those questions.
O adultério era apenas um dos muitos pecados estigmatizados pelos puritanos com letras escarlates. Blasfêmia, alcoolismo, falsificação, incesto, violação, roubo, vício. A lista das punições incluía diversas formas de humilhação. O cadafalso, o cepo e postes de tortura eram colocados no centro de quase todas as vilas da Nova Inglaterra. A penitência em público era comum, mas existiam outros métodos mais dolorosos, como o ferro em brasa. Como Hawthorne queria transportar seus leitores para o século XVII, escreveu seus diálogos em inglês arcaico. Se tornou uma leitura difícil, mas foi bem sucedido em criar uma sensação de formalidade puritana. Depois que Hester apareceu no cadafalso, ela e sua filha Pearl são levadas para a prisão. O marido chega para confrontar a esposa infiel.
Hester! Who is the man who has wronged us both?
Don't ask me. That you will never know.
Never, you say? Believe me, Hester, there be few things hidden from the man who devotes himself earnestly to the solution of a mystery. You may cover up this secret from the multitudes and the magistrates. I will seek this man. He will be mine.
You won't find him.
Never mind. I have a request from you, my former wife, which you cannot deny me. You have kept the name of your lover, so keep mine. You must tell no one that I was your husband.
All right. I will keep your secret as I have kept his.
Hester promete proteger o seu amante, mas ao fazê-lo, permite que Chillingworth descubra a identidade secreta de Dimmesdale.
Why Hester loves Dimmesdale is a mystery. But then I think Hawthorne believes that why people love people is a mystery anyway. Everybody knows people who love people whom they have no business loving. She's fallen in love, and being a woman, as Hawthorne imagines women to be, she loves him forever, regardless. I think another way to think about what she saw in him is that he is a kind of star or a celebrity in that little community. All the other ministers are older men. Here we've got a young man, very handsome as far as we can tell from Hawthorne's description. Everybody idolizes him.
Para os puritanos de Hawthorne, a Bíblia era a autoridade absoluta, e a Bíblia afirmava que a infidelidade era um pecado imperdoável. Afinal, Deus puniu os adúlteros bíblicos Davi e Betsabá através da morte do seu filho.
As biblical believers, the Puritans were keenly aware of the great adulterers in history. Hawthorne uses adultery to stand for the more general sinfulness of the human heart. It was an especially egregious sin because it violated not only the marriage relationship, but also the social covenant. Marriage is something that is done in the eyes of the state.
Hester é banida da sociedade. Mora com Pearl nos arredores da cidade e ganha vida como costureira. Seu bordado fino é muito requisitado pela comunidade que a despreza. Os juízes locais a mantêm ocupada com encomendas para todas as ocasiões especiais, exceto casamentos.
In this manner, Hester Prynne came to have a part to perform in the world. With her native energy of character and rare capacity, it could not entirely cast her off, although it had set a mark upon her more intolerable to a woman's heart than that which branded the brow of Cain.
A atitude independente e rebelde de Hester não era típica das mulheres puritanas. Ela pode ter refletido as mudanças que tiveram lugar na época de Hawthorne. Em 1850, as mulheres começaram cautelosamente a pressionar por seu direito à educação e pela primeira vez a fazer campanha para limitar o controle legal que maridos tinham sobre suas esposas. Margaret Fuller, uma colega transcendentalista de Hawthorne, foi a autora do primeiro tratado feminista norte-americano. Ela tornou-se a mentora das mulheres que liderariam os movimentos abolicionista e sufragista. A Hester de Hawthorne quase foi uma mulher à frente do seu tempo.
So what happens is he creates a radical woman character who confronts the town by virtue of her femaleness. That's her sexuality, which is very important. He takes her to a certain point, and then he will not allow her to act. She can't run away. She can't really confront the town. The only way she can do these things is by accepting the town's version of her and being that person to perfection.
Com o passar dos anos, a filha ilegítima de Hester cresceu tornando-se uma menina viva e independente. Pearl é uma criança impetuosa e incrivelmente perceptiva. Hester não consegue controlá-la.
Pearl starts as a kind of obsession herself. A walking symbol of the Scarlet Letter, she's called at one place. In another place, she's seen as if she were a kind of embodiment of her parents' passion, her parents' sin.
This child is completely outside the law and symbolizes, if you will, what it is to be outside of society entirely.
Seu isolamento forçado pela comunidade faz de Hester a única companhia de Pearl. Às vezes elas caminham pela floresta. Pearl questiona sua mãe incessantemente sobre o porquê da letra escarlate e a identidade de seu pai.
Pearl is defined throughout the novel as a sort of imp child. At times she's talked about as the sort of, her father being the black man of the forest, the devil. That part of her character functions in the novel to associate a sort of evil and Puritan culture with the forest, with the unknown that the forest represents, the forest being the place they associate with a lack of social order. So the devil is often associated with the forest.
Satan was very real for the Puritans. The devil was present and at work. This is why witchcraft was so feared. Then, as now, there actually were people who practiced magic and witchcraft, but they punished it because they believed that it was really, really true, that you could hurt people by witchcraft. They believed that the devil was at work trying to bring us down.
A insolência de Pearl faz com que os juízes da cidade sugiram que seja afastada da mãe. Hester vai até a casa do governador para se defender.
There were rumors spread around by people who had trouble with the whole idea of an anomaly, like a single parent raising a child on the outskirts of town. They thought that she was an unfit mother because she had committed this sexual crime and would not confess who the father was. That was really the key to it, that she held back from telling the full truth about the situation.
Ao entrar, Hester encontra o governador Chillingworth conversando com o reverendo Dimmesdale. O governador pergunta a Pearl de onde ela vem, para testar o seu conhecimento de catecismo.
Pearl knows the answer perfectly well, but she is being her impish self. The role of Pearl in the story, in a way, is to disrupt. She's a great disruptor. Children are great disruptors anyway, but she is the disruptor extraordinaire. She gives what she knows is a perverse answer. She puts her finger in her mouth and she says, "Well, no one made me," or "My mother plucked me from the rose bush by the prison door." This is an answer that is calculated to bring the ire or the displeasure, the disapproval of her elders.
Hester Prynne, there has been much question concerning you lately. The point has been discussed whether we, who are charged to monitor and instruct our flocks in Christian principles, do well to trust the soul of your child to the guidance of one who has stumbled and fallen into the pit of sin. Would it not be better if she were taken from your charge and instructed in the truths of heaven and earth?
No, I will not lose the child. Speak for me. You were my pastor and had charge of my soul and know me better than these men can.
There is truth in what she says. This child of its father's guilt and its mother's shame works in many ways upon her heart. It was meant for a blessing, the one blessing she has. It was meant for a retribution, too, a torture to be felt, a constant reminder in the midst of a troubled joy.
As palavras de Dimmesdale convencem o governador em deixar Pearl aos cuidados de Hester, o que incita as suspeitas do governador sobre o pastor. Enquanto Hester e Pearl dirigem-se para casa, são abordadas pela irmã do governador, Sra. Ribbons, que dizem ser uma bruxa.
A witch in New England had multiple meanings. Pride was the ultimate sin of witches, but there were a number of others that the Puritan magistrates and ministers associated with witchcraft. This idea of a witch as a discontented and angry woman, or the idea of a witch as a seductive woman, or as an envious or malicious woman.
Wilt thou go with us tonight? There will be a merry company in the forest, and I promise the man in black that Hester Prynne should attend.
Please make my excuse to him. I must stay at home and keep watch over my little Pearl. Had they taken her from me, I would willingly have gone with you into the forest.
What Hibbins is doing is trying to lure her into witchcraft. She's suggesting that she has every reason to become a witch. I mean, she has plenty of reason to be discontented and angry and vengeful. But Hawthorne keeps her from that. I mean, she does not become that kind of figure. She's never bitter. She may be strong, she may be outspoken, but she never becomes the kind of discontented and angry woman that Puritans most associated with witchcraft.
A sociedade puritana era o ambiente ideal para acusações de bruxaria e magia negra. Sua religião ensinava que o diabo estava sempre à espreita. Os puritanos moravam em vilarejos cercados pela selvageria. Temiam a floresta e os índios que lá habitavam. O desconhecido, onde as forças da escuridão estavam à espera.
The settlers were nervous about their physical well-being, and that made them fearful. They were very, very nervous too about the honesty of their own religious and political philosophy. They wanted it to be honest and they wanted to believe it. But they also suffered from a sense that it may not have been true. Because they saw in their own lives that they couldn't live up to it, that didn't make them any less fearful of it. But since they believed that they had to be perfect, they had to displace all their fear onto something else, because they couldn't really cope with the terror of saying, it's me. So everything was externalized. So if I felt desire for you as a man, and you were a woman, I externalized that desire and I blamed you for exciting it in me and said that you had put it into me by an act of witchcraft.
Muito embora as mulheres fossem frequentemente acusadas de bruxaria, qualquer comportamento estranho causava suspeitas.
Chillingworth crosses the line constantly between being a witch figure and being the devil himself. I mean, he is the black man at times in this novel, but he's also someone who is portrayed as having made a pact with the devil.
Dimmesdale está tornando-se cada vez mais fraco e Chillingworth suspeita que a causa de sua fraqueza seria uma consciência pesada. Ele vai viver com o pastor e o tortura pelo sugestionamento, provocando discussões sobre a hipocrisia e suas consequências. Enquanto Chillingworth atormenta Dimmesdale, Pearl fazia o mesmo com sua mãe. O amor da criança pelas travessuras e seu desrespeito pelas autoridades eram uma presença constante da sua ilegitimidade. Inclusive o nome Pearl, uma referência bíblica à pérola do grande preço, faz Hester relembrar seu próprio pecado apaixonado.
In contrast to Pearl, we have the husband of Hester who attaches himself to Dimmesdale and becomes something like his conscience. And you could say that whereas Pearl symbolizes the absence of law, Chillingworth becomes law without any mercy at all. He haunts the minister. He tortures the minister.
The affair of Hester and Dimmesdale creates an obsession for him. He becomes hooked on the obsession, and it destroys him.
Uma noite, Chillingworth entra no quarto do ministro enquanto este dorme e descobre uma marca terrível em seu peito.
I believe what Hawthorne intends there is that Dimmesdale had inflicted a brand upon himself, branding himself with a hot iron with the letter A, so that he, in fact, had the same brand that Hester did.
Apesar do seu sofrimento constante, Dimmesdale é incapaz de confessar publicamente o seu pecado. Ele se penitencia, jejua e reza sem parar, numa busca desesperada pela redenção.
He becomes increasingly certain that what he did was wrong and that he deserves to be punished for it, but at the same time, believing as he does in the law, he's afraid to confess to what he's done because then he will be punished, then he will lose the status that he depends on.
Sua culpa o leva ao total desespero e ele focaliza sua fé na salvação. Os sermões do ministro parecem cada vez mais inspirados.
Arthur Dimmesdale is presented as a preacher with a sweet and broken voice, and it vibrated in the human heart. Dimmesdale has ironically even more power as a minister because of his brokenness. As he mounted the steps of the pulpit and that rich voice lofted out over the congregation, hearts were moved. And even as he expressed his own brokenness and yearned to confess it all before the congregation, they read it as simply an expression of his deep piety.
The people knew not the power that moved them thus. They deemed the young clergyman a miracle of holiness. They fancied him the mouthpiece of heaven's messages of wisdom and rebuke and love. In their eyes, the very ground on which he trod was sanctified.
Enquanto o pastor ministra sermões dramáticos, Hester passa seu tempo com os pobres e necessitados do vilarejo sem alarde. A comunidade que a julgou tão duramente agora beneficia-se da generosidade do seu espírito.
She, increasingly through the course of the novel, becomes more and more like the ideal Puritan woman in a number of ways, not totally, but she becomes deeply concerned with the sort of good of the community. I mean, she becomes a kind of nurse figure, but throughout the novel she is still a sort of symbol of that sin that she committed before the novel begins.
7 anos após o nascimento de Pearl, a hipocrisia do reverendo Dimmesdale vem finalmente à tona. Ele passa a se odiar. Uma noite ele vai até o mercado e monta os degraus do cadafalso onde Hester estivera de pé em penitência.
Dimmesdale believed, along with all Puritans, that the ministry of the Word of God and the office of the minister was itself a means of grace, so that in spite of his sinfulness, he still prayed that he would be the channel of God's blessing to the people, and that it would be better for him to continue, even in hypocrisy, that God could still use him.
Hester e Pearl estão caminhando para casa quando encontram o atormentado ministro. Dimmesdale e Hester estão unidos por Pearl, o fruto do seu amor e símbolo do seu pecado.
Climbing onto the scaffold in the middle of the night is another form of pretending to confess, but not really confessing. In terms of the plot, It happens that Hester and Pearl are walking along the street, and it happens that they see him. It happens that she climbs up to talk to him, and at that moment she sees how he has deteriorated in the course of the several years that they haven't really had much to do with one another.
Típico da literatura vitoriana, os objetos tornam-se símbolos para viabilizar um sentido nas entrelinhas. A prisão e o cemitério sugerem repressão e dor. A floresta simboliza a liberdade durante o dia e o mal à noite. E, obviamente, a letra escarlate a tudo permeia.
The entire community becomes symbolic. If Hester comes to symbolize the individual who is self-motivated, and Dimmesdale comes to symbolize conformity, the Puritans come to symbolize community and the whole question of how much law a community needs and how much freedom individuals can have within a community, you get a symbolic setup in the interaction of the characters.
Após Hester e Pearl ficarem com Dimmesdale no cadafalso, Hester resolve amenizar o sofrimento do pastor. Ela procura por Chillingworth para acabar com a promessa de sigilo feita ao vingativo velho.
No, look at me. I have become a fiend. You said so yourself. And it is he who has made me so.
I cannot bear it, nor the falsehood in which I have engaged these years. For his sake and for mine, I must reveal the secret.
Woman, I could pity you. Perhaps, had you met earlier with a better love than mine, all this evil would not have happened. I pity you for the good that has been wasted in your nature.
And I you, for the hatred that has transformed a wise and just man into a fiend. Will you not release it and be human again? There may yet be good for you, since you have been deeply wronged and are able to pardon.
Peace, Hester. I cannot pardon. It is our fate. Now, go your way and deal as you will with that wretched man.
Chillingworth takes upon himself the role of God. He puts these people through hell and becomes, in his own mind, the agent of God. His sin is perhaps the worst. But in another way, before God, all sins are the same. They're of equal weight because they destroy the soul. They kill. Sin kills human life, and it destroys each character in the story. So from that point of view, for each of them, their own sin is the worst.
A narrativa alcança seu clímax quando Hester encontra o atormentado pastor no bosque. A melancolia do ambiente reflete a apreensão e o desespero de Hester.
Hester tells him that the man he is living with, whom he has thought of as a friend and a counselor, is in fact her husband, his greatest enemy. He is horrified. He says, "Oh my God, Hester, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?" She says to him, "Leave." Now, this would be very good advice for certain kinds of people, but it is a very bad piece of advice for Dimmesdale, given who he is. She says, "Forget these people. You don't have anything to do with them." He says, "Oh, but I can't go by myself." She says, "All right, I'll go with you." And we've got this moment of possibility where everything is going to be wonderful.
Hester fica aliviada pelo pensamento de sair de Boston. O bosque, anteriormente proibido, torna-se um símbolo de liberdade. Quando Hester joga fora a letra, fica radiante de felicidade e a luz do sol brilha pela escuridão.
He's wonderfully complex, Hawthorne. You know, you can feel it in him, and you can feel it in the writing. There's a passage where he talks about Hester's response to Arthur when Arthur comes in the forest and she realizes that Arthur does actually love her. And he talks about her skin tones changing and when she lets her hair down. This is a man who loves women. I mean, he's seen this. He's written about something that he's seen.
Hester chama Pearl, que estava brincando nas árvores. A visão da mãe, sem a letra, perturba a obstinada criança. Hester percebe que a letra escarlate é uma parte inseparável do seu passado. Numa tentativa de conquistar a amizade de Pearl, Dimmesdale a beija, mas ela corre para um riacho e lava o beijo que recebeu. Pearl odeia o segredo dos seus pais.
Pearl says that she wants Dimmesdale to say that he's her father in public. Otherwise, I think the implication is she won't believe that he really means it. And she's right.
É dia de eleição para os magistrados da cidade e há um burburinho no centro da vila. Hester, Dimmesdale e Pearl devem partir secretamente de Boston naquela noite, num navio rumo à Inglaterra.
It's a story about freedom. There is not much freedom in the story, but there's the yearning for freedom. There is the dream of freedom. There's the question, how do we find freedom?
Marion, how much is that pardon long on that?
Todos os sonhos de Hester desmoronam-se quando o capitão do barco lhe diz que Chillingworth iria com eles. Ela corre para avisar Dimmesdale, mas antes que consiga, ele sobe ao cadafalso. Dimmesdale diz a Hester que está morrendo e deve assumir a sua vergonha. Ele se volta e grita para a multidão, revelando sua culpa.
The sun, but little past its meridian, shone down upon the clergyman and gave a distinctness to his figure as he stood out from all the earth to put in his plea of guilty at the bar of eternal justice.
Dimmesdale confesses because he is too deeply the Puritan to change his identity. In his frame of reference, the only way to live out his destiny is to be who he is in relation to the Puritan community. In other words, to live out his destiny as a minister. And that means to disclose his secret and take what follows.
Ao final da confissão, Dimmesdale revela o peito à multidão horrorizada, como prova do seu pecado.
At the end of Scarlet Letter, after Arthur's sermon, Hawthorne's very interesting. He can't bring himself quite to say that everybody got the same message. What he says is, people saw this in all sorts of different ways, and they didn't really know what to make of it, and they were kind of a bit discombobulated and confused by all this. They didn't know whether there was an A, they didn't know whether there wasn't, they didn't know whether they'd heard what he said or not.
Finalmente, com a consciência limpa e sua família reunida, Dimmesdale morre. Ele se entrega à misericórdia divina, abandonando Hester e Pearl.
Hester, at the end of the story, still wants Arthur as they share that moment in the magic circle in the forest. She has a new future, a different future in mind. And even when Arthur goes onto the scaffold at the very end, she still is yearning for him and believes that perhaps they'll be together in heaven. So has she repented? Has the Scarlet Letter done its office? I have my doubts, and so does Arthur. He says, I fear. Think about it, Hester, he says. Think about our sin. Repentance is the way. That's the Puritan answer. Arthur is a good Puritan until the end.
Hawthorne nos conta o que acontecera com aqueles que Dimmesdale deixara. Chillingworth morreu em 1 ano e deixa uma herança para Pearl e Hester. Elas deixam o país e, após alguns anos, Hester retorna à vila ainda usando a sua letra.
For me, the great false note in Hester's character at the end is that Hester stays on in the town, puts off everything that she's believed in the hopes that this will come to Pearl, and lives as a kind of grey eminence who earns the respect of the town. That, for me, is totally out of character.
O retorno de Hester ao vilarejo, onde passou sua vida como uma marginal, é um final frustrante para muitos leitores da Letra Escarlate. Ficamos pensando qual seria o ponto de vista de Hawthorne. Ele se recusa em dar um fechamento à história. Quando ela morre de velhice, Hester é enterrada ao lado de Dimmesdale, num único jazigo. A letra A está gravada na lápide.
Hawthorne wanted to dramatize in one book both the claims of the individual against society and the state, and the claims of society on the individual. And so he created a kind of paradox and expressed it in narrative form. And that's the book as we have it. And I think undoubtedly helps account for the book's endurance as a classic.
No final, quem estaria certo sobre a paixão do pecado de Hester e Dimmesdale? Isto não importa. Existem males muito maiores que o adultério, ou um filho ilegítimo, como, por exemplo, a hipocrisia e a vingança. E certamente existem castigos muito piores do que a Letra Escarlate.